living longer, living healthier, living better than ever before. Welcome to Mountain Pacific's Healthy Living for Life, a weekly series that gives you the information, education, and expert insight you need to become an active participant in today's ever-changing healthcare climate. Here now is today's program host.
Life insurance is a topic that makes many of us want to change the subject. It's tough to discuss the fact that none of us lives forever. But what if life insurance was less about death benefits and more about living, loving, and leaving legacies? Welcome to Healthy Living for Life, a show dedicated to helping you do just that. I'm your host, Beth Brown, and today we're talking about the facts of life insurance. Stay with us. We'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back to Healthy Living for Life. Joining me today is Joe Mitchell, who is a State Farm agent, and he's here to talk to us all about life insurance, and thanks so much for being here.
Hey, thank you for having me.
So let's start out by just talking about you. You've been with State Farm for 11 years is what I have in my notes here. So how did you get into this industry?
Wow, 11 years. Time flies when you're having fun. Well, I was actually giving a best man speech at my friend's wedding, and I was approached by a recruiter after that and said, how would you like to earn what you're worth? So that's kind of a roundabout way of saying I got into this industry because I felt like, I wanted to be compensated for doing a good job. And at a young age, my cousin lost his life. It was really a tragic thing. And his wife and kids, he didn't have life insurance. And his wife and kids really have a tough life, and they still have a tough life to this day. And yeah. I know my cousin loved his family more than anything, and I'm confident, I'm positive that if someone like me would have spoke with him about making sure that your family's taken care of, if you can't take care of them anymore, he definitely would have bought it. And so my belief is if I can have a conversation with someone, even just one person, and help them put the protection in place for their family, that it was a career worth living.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Very nice. So you are clearly passionate about this. And you talked about this a little bit already, but why do you think it's important for folks to get life insurance?
Yeah. The fascinating thing about life insurance is it's really the only product that we will guarantee you pay out on.
Yeah.
So, now all of us are walking around with an expiration date, whether that's tomorrow or, Lord willing, 50, 60 years from now. But interestingly enough, life insurance isn't really about dying, it's about living. And it's about, I call it, the final love letter from the grave, is making sure that, if these things are important to me to happen in my family, I'm going to see to it that they happen whether I'm here or not. And that's really nice. Why I believe that.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So it's tough to talk about, though. When you bring up life insurance with a client, say, what are some common things you hear from folks?
Yeah, that they have to go pick up their kids from daycare. No. It's one of those things people aren't necessarily, it's not maybe the most thrilling thing to talk about. There's a lot of, misconception. I think we'll talk about that later, but there's a lot of misconceptions and different issues. But I think just from a human nature standpoint, coming to grips with the fact that we're not going to be here forever, it's hard, and it's hard to do. And in a weird kind of way, with this whole pandemic issue, people are much more willing to engage in that conversation because I think the fragility of life has been really illustrated to us, really in our face over the last couple years. And so if I maybe brought that up, the subject will get changed as fast as possible. But now people seem to be more open to having some conversation about it.
Yeah, the COVID pandemic has definitely created some reality around some of that. So let's learn about some of the basic terms when we talk about life insurance. So what is the difference between term life insurance and whole life insurance?
Okay, so I like to look at life insurance as either temporary or short-term, or permanent or long-term. Okay. And so a term policy is a temporary product, generally for a specified term or time frame, a 10-year term, a 20-year term. So that's what a term insurance product is. Some of the benefits of a term product is that the rate stays the same for that term. So if it's $50 a month for a 10-year term, our promise is that the policy will not change in price for 10 years. But after that time frame, the price is subject to increase, and it will increase significantly. And so that's why I consider that a short-term product, because at some point, after a certain amount of time, it's just unaffordable and people can't keep it. Permanent life insurance, on the other hand, is forever. And so whether it's you tip over tomorrow or when you're 121 years old, that product will be there. And so there's a whole bunch of nuance within a permanent life insurance contract, but for the most part, generally speaking, that's the most, the easiest way to understand. It's a long term. It's not a if policy, it's a when policy. If you keep the policy, regardless, it'll be there for you at the end. Typically, on a permanent product, the premium stays level as well, and so that's a benefit of that type of contract.
So if someone has life insurance through their work, are they set, or should they get extra policies? Yeah,
so probably the most common conversation we have in my office, because obviously at State Farm, our main product is car insurance, and unfortunately people die in car accidents. And so we talk to folks about making sure that they have some plans in place. And I can tell you, 9 out of 10 people say, I'm good, I have that at work. Yeah. And the first thing I like to do is congratulate people, because the best life insurance policy is the one that you have in force. And so that is really great. Unfortunately, the concern that I have is group life insurance or life insurance through work almost gives consumers the excuse not to have to look into it or think about it much. I know, I just get that. So I always ask a follow-up question. That's great, Beth. How much do you have at work, and how much does it cost you? And you know what most people tell me?
They don't know.
They have no idea. So the good thing about it is that they have something. Employers are this is a tough time for employers. And I think benefits are a big issue. They're expensive. And I think that we've already seen a shift in how big employers are offering benefits. And one of the things that is definitely getting cut, adjusted, kind of trying to navigate through is this life insurance piece. And so that's wonderful you have it at work. Let's dig into it a little bit more and find out if it's satisfying what you want it to do.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. All right, we're run into a break, so we need to pause here for just a couple minutes, Joe. But when we come back, we're going to talk about how life insurance can also be a financial tool. Stay with us. We'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back. We're still talking with Joe Mitchell from State Farm Insurance, and thanks for sticking around with us, Joe.
Good to be here.
So let's talk about young people who probably are even more uncomfortable talking about life insurance than others because they don't feel like they need it. What's your response to that?
Yeah, we're all going to live forever, right? Here's the thing, a couple of things to consider. And, I don't beat people over the head with this life insurance thing. It's just a thoughtful conversation I try to have with folks. The first one is insurability issues. We all know someone whose health has changed suddenly. And so you have to qualify for individual life insurance. And so that's one of the main reasons I encourage young folks to get some coverage in place, because when we do underwriting, we underwrite them for their health at that time. The next thing is I like to ask folks if they're planning to have a family at some point, if things go well for them and in their life. And if they are, I feel very strongly that it makes a lot of sense to get something on the books now before you do have folks relying on you, kids relying on you, a spouse that you share a mortgage with or whatever. Particularly from a health standpoint, our health can change fast. Mm-hmm. So
kind of on the flip side of that coin then, are you ever too old to get life insurance?
That's a great question. And so generally speaking, we can place insurance products up to 85 years old. And so there are some kind of unique products out there that you can qualify for some things with some different stipulations and things. But if you're thinking about getting some life insurance and you're 85 or younger, you probably want to get moving on that.
Okay. So we've definitely talked about life insurance being more than death benefits, more than just a payout. It really is something you can do for your family. Can you talk a little bit more about in what other ways can life insurance be useful to somebody?
Yeah, so insurance is a highly regulated industry, obviously, for good reason. And one of the things that the government actually mandates inside a permanent life insurance contract is there are living benefits. Some people call them cash values. That's probably the easiest thing to call them. And so what happens is when you pay money into a contract that's protecting your life, anything over and above that cost of insurance goes into your cash value. And then you have access to withdraw that, take loans against that. And what's really cool about that is you don't have to like go to the insurance company and fill out an application to qualify to get access to your money. It is in fact your money. And so there's some nuance to that, but the long and short of it is that it creates like a savings account within the contract that you have access to. It's liquid, you can control the use of it. And the best part about it is it's not subject to market conditions. So if the market crashes, it's not like you're going to lose the cash value in your life insurance, which is very important to a lot of the folks that I work with.
So you may be a little bit biased about this question, but if someone is considering getting a life insurance policy or opening a savings account, what would you recommend?
Yeah, that's a great question. I do my best to stay away from blanket recommendations. We really try to get to understand what's important to the person that we're meeting with and working with. There are several reasons to have one or the other. I think if you feel like you need the death benefit and you're concerned about liquidity, use, and control of your money, that definitely want to consider a permanent life insurance contract. But there are certainly cases where a savings account is more appropriate. We're in interesting times. We are in a very low interest rate environment right now. So if you go to a bank and say, hey, I have $100,000, how much interest is there available for me? You might be surprised.
Okay.
You might be offended at what they tell you. And so generally speaking, on a permanent contract, you're going to earn a minimum of 2% of guaranteed interest, which that's probably 4 times or more the rate that you're going to get at a bank.
Okay. So talk to us about the products that kind of lend themselves to be financial tools.
Yeah, so mainly permanent life insurance, so whole life insurance or universal life insurance. Any life insurance product that creates a chassis for a side account into it. And so if you're looking at creating a savings strategy along with having the death benefit, you would want to talk to your insurance professional about a whole life contract or a universal life contract. Yep.
And these are products that are available regardless of the insurance agency?
Yeah, for the most part. There is something to be said about financial strength, and so I would encourage you to talk with your insurance professional about that, just making sure that the company is solvent and is going to be able to be there to make good on the promise is really important.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point.
A mutual company, I should mention, I think a good fit would be a mutual company, which means they're owned by the policyholders. And so there are different criterias there that you're not subject to your stockholders, if you will. It's the policyholders.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. So why would you say it's important for people to know this kind of information is available, or that savings is available?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of people out here who are concerned about the volatility that we have in our current market. There are a lot of question marks, and there's tremendous economic value in certainty. And I think for a lot of contracts, particularly permanent life insurance contracts, there are a lot of guarantees. Guarantees, I like to say with a capital G, meaning it doesn't matter what the market conditions are, what happens, this is contractually guaranteed for you. And there is a definite economic value in certainty.
Awesome. Okay, we're coming up on another break. Any last thoughts about savings?
I just think it's important to share your individual situation, because these products are specifically designed insurance contracts for your individual situation.
Perfect. All right. Thanks, Joe. We do need to pause here for another break. But when we come back, we're going to talk more about life insurance and specifically how those kind of policies can help you leave a legacy for your loved ones. We'll talk about that after these messages. Stick around. Welcome back to Healthy Living for Life. Joe Mitchell from State Farm Insurance is still talking to us, and we are now going to talk about how specifically life insurance holds more promises than just death benefits. So thanks for sticking around for that, Joe. Let's talk about, so we've talked about how life insurance can be a financial tool, but how does that benefit a person's loved ones?
Yeah, so what's fascinating about working with life insurance is that people in all different stages of their lives need and want different things, right? And so if I'm working with a young family, they might really need income protection and mortgage protection, where if I'm working with some folks who are on the edge of retirement, they're looking for distribution strategies that's going to help them minimize their tax obligation and give them some certainty. And so that's what I really love about working with life insurance is there's no one size fits all. One of the things that's been really interesting that I've been working with a lot of folks right around retirement is this conversation about Social Security. A lot of folks don't understand that if you have a spouse that passes away while you're on Social Security, you have a choice. You can either keep your Social Security, so if both spouses are on Social Security, you can keep yours, or you can file for the spousal benefit, meaning you could take your spouse's if that was higher, but you lose one of them. And so if part of our strategy, part of our income strategy, our purchasing strategy through our retirement is counting on this guaranteed $800, $1,000, $1,500 a month from our Social Security, and now we don't have that, that can create some real income challenges for a spouse who is who's left with the loss of a loved one. And so I think that's something to consider. Also, how do you want to be remembered? We run into people who say, my aunt gave us this, so we were able to buy this home, or, my grandma put this aside and it helped me pay for my college tuition, or, and that's pretty cool. That's pretty special. So.
Yeah, I can say my grandma paid for my mom and I to go to Italy together. So that is one way that's really cool. So I think that speaks a lot to the idea that life insurance can be about leaving a legacy. So can you kind of explain that to us a little bit more?
Yeah, and that's probably why I'm such a huge fan of permanent life insurance, is because I talked about the guarantees earlier, but as long as you do your end of the bargain, which is make sure you stay paying your premiums, no matter what, at the end of the road, we're going to have this sum of money that's available for our loved ones. And so what's really cool about that is you'd be surprised that what's important to people. I remember I had a gentleman when he passed away, he wanted to give all his money for love of dogs. He was very passionate about dogs and making sure they were taken care of. Like I mentioned, generational type of gifting to give the next generation a leg up. Maybe this is to pay the student loans. A lot of our generation is faced with a lot of these challenges, and it's tough. And so if we can be a part of helping be a solution for some of that stuff, or if it's just like what you experience. I mean, let's go on a trip and remember grandma.
Yeah.
How cool is this?
Yep.
It's pretty special.
Yeah, very cool. So you've talked about that it's really no one size fits all sort of a thing. Is there anybody who is not a good candidate for life insurance?
Yeah, that's a good question. Insurability is an issue. And so let's say that you just got through fighting cancer. You're probably not eligible. And so that's a challenge. We actually had that happen in my office last month, as we had a gal call us and say, hey, I need to get some life insurance, and we go through the process and find out that she just recently had cancer, so we had to, State Farm declined that contract. And so other than an uninsurable medical condition, I think an argument can be made that a life insurance contract is a good fit for your financial portfolio. Whether you're leaving a legacy, whether you're doing, wealth, estate planning. We have folks who have taxation issues they have to be concerned about, particularly with the transfer of land, or whether you're just a young family that if one of you didn't make it home from work that day, have some real serious, you have all kinds of problems, but in my mind, the financial problem exacerbates all of the other problems. And unfortunately, my family's been hit just personally this past year, and it's a humbling experience to go through when you're watching someone you love trying to, kind of
sort through
all that, and it's tough.
Yeah,
that's tough. But so that's the way I look at it. Is I think it's really it's an opportunity to write that last love letter to your family and saying, hey, I'm really sorry I can't be here to walk you down the aisle, or see you graduate, but I'm going to make sure that you're taken care of. I'm going to make sure your wedding's paid for. I'm going to make sure your student loans aren't going to bog you down. So it's that final love letter from the grave.
That's awesome, Joe. So for folks who are watching who are like, okay, this is awesome, I want to give that final love letter. I've got young kids or young grandkids. Is there an age where the people that you're trying to leave money to could not get that money because they're too young?
Oh, so that's a really good question. And so I work with some attorneys in town, and we help set up trusts to properly fund those situations. We can't give a pile of money to a minor. And so in those cases, we have different bank products and stuff that we can set aside through the use of a trust and a trustee to manage that, so that if the intent is to make sure that junior is taken care of for college or whatever, or for the first car or whatever it may be, that we've built a process to make sure that that happens. So the long answer is no, they're not too young, but we just have to set it up the right way.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We're almost out of time. So final thoughts in a sentence or two. What do you want to make sure we leave with today?
Don't be too scared to ask some questions about it. A lot of the folks that I work with who decide to move forward with getting a contract in place, they'll say something like, I didn't know it was this affordable, or I didn't know that, I didn't know. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And so go and talk with somebody that you trust, and share what's important to you. And unfortunately, insurance is one of those things that once we need it, it's too late.
Yeah.
And so get it taken care of now, and then you can have peace of mind.
Perfect. So much great information, Joe. Thank you very much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you'll come back and see us again next weekend. Until then, stay fit, stay well, and stay healthy for life with Healthy Living for Life. Have a great week, everybody.
Healthy Living for Life is brought to you by Mountain Pacific Quality Health in partnership with AARP Montana. We'd love to hear from you. If you have suggestions for future programs, visit our website at mpqhf.org or call us at 406-443-4020. You can also catch us on YouTube by visiting our website and clicking on the Healthy Living for Life logo. Production facilities provided by Video Express Productions.